I'm joined now by Professor Martin Green, who's chair of the Council of ILC-UK. Martin, for anybody who's unfamiliar with what ILC does, what does it do?
The International Longevity Centre is a policy think tank, and what we do is we look at the implications of enhanced longevity and what that means for everybody in society. So it's not only about older people, but it's about saying we know that people are living much longer, and what does that mean for society and how it's planned. And it's as much about the 5-year-old as it is about the 85-year-old and everybody in between. And we're trying to say, how does society change to make sure everybody gets the dividend of increased life expectancy?
That's quite difficult, isn't it, in a policy context, because in the UK we tend to approach policy in silos through the life course. So getting politicians and policymakers to address the entire life course is quite challenging.
It's very challenging getting connections with politics, because increasingly over the years politics has gone into the short term, but we are thinking about the very long term. But I think what we have to do is we have to identify what the benefits are to everybody, and that includes politicians. So taking the long view, thinking about how we plan and develop services, thinking about what the infrastructure of our society needs to be like in order to sustain a greater degree of older people. Those are things which every politician at some point will have to connect with. And what you have to do, in my view, is take big issues and make them relevant to people, and identify how those big issues might be relevant to that politician at that moment. And hopefully they will make an informed and good decision rather than just making a decision.
Many demands on government at the moment, particularly for investment. We're just coming out of a pandemic. We've got war in Europe and the cost of living crisis. How do you make the case land for longevity?
Well, I think you make the case land by saying this is in everybody's interest. And so, for example, we have a society that tends to consign people once they've retired to inactivity. Now, these are huge numbers of resources that could be brought into play to meet some of the challenges that you mentioned. So I think what you have to do is you have to say the way we look at things at the moment is not the best way for our citizens or indeed for the long term. But we have to say we have got lots of resources here, intellectual resources, people have got some really good skills, and what we should do is be harnessing those. And we should also be looking at how we educate and plan for the future. So in all these areas, if we make the right decisions now, they will have very significant and positive impacts in the future.
The UK organisation is of course part of a global network, I think of some 16 countries involved. What strengths do you draw from that?
Well, I think the diversity of ILCs across the globe are really important, because what you see is different societies responding in different ways. And so, for example, our colleagues in Africa don't have the same issues at the moment that we do, but they can learn from the things that we have done, and also, very importantly, can often learn from our mistakes. I also think that when you have a global network and you look at issues and problems, people come at things from different perspectives. So what you then get is a much more balanced and creative view about how to respond to challenges. So I'm very proud that we have ILCs on every continent, because we are representative of the diversity of the globe. But longevity, hopefully the longevity dividend, will be everybody's business at some point.
And looking back over the 25 years that ILC-UK has been in existence, can you point to any particular achievements?
Yes, there are many achievements. We've done a lot on things like pensions policy. We've also engaged the pharmaceutical industry. We've done a lot on employment, and particularly on older workers. So these are things that are making a difference. And I think within those 25 years, there have been some very clear and tangible outcomes that the ILC has delivered. And we've delivered it in a very collaborative way. So our policy is not to go out and hector people, but to work with them to create solutions.
And looking forward, what are the immediate challenges?
I think there are things like work. We've got to get a different approach to work, and particularly to work-life balance, and the increased longevity dividend will help that. I think we've also got to look at how we educate people, and the way in which we educate people at the moment tends to be focused on the start of their life rather than developing skills throughout their life, and that will be a way in which we can harness their skills and abilities for the benefit of everyone. I think there are some really big issues around transport policy. There are things around energy policy and the green agenda where the longevity dividend needs to be harnessed to look at some of those sorts of issues. And I guess everything that's about the future, the longevity dividend needs to be a part of it, but it also needs to be based in what can we do now that will improve things. And we need a long-term, a medium-term and an immediate strategy to move us forward.
Cynics might say, isn't this just about making us work longer?
Well, they may well say that. And I think one of the things that people need to realise, though, is it's about choice. It's about people having purpose in their lives. And if you look at some people who people might think, oh, they lead a wonderful life because they don't need to work. Often they do work because they need purpose. They need to feel that they're a contributor. So I think we have to say it has to be about choice. But what we shouldn't be doing is closing off people's choices just because they reach a certain age.
You've talked about the achievements of the past 25 years. Casting forward another 25, what would you like the perspective to be then?
Well, I'd like a perspective that's about people's contribution, not about their age or where they position themselves in society. I'd like to see a policy agenda that is very holistic, that's not in its silos. I'd like to see technology absolutely revolutionising the way we live and the way we work, helping us to contribute all the way throughout the life course. I'd like to see a radical transformation in education so that people see education as something about lifelong learning rather than just being crammed into the first 15 or 20 years of your life. So some of those issues will be really high on the agenda. And of course, the whole issue around climate change and the green agenda, how we use our energy and how we make sure that energy is sustainable. These are going to be big issues. And I hope that the longevity dividend will be at the centre of our response to that.
And more short term, we'll be having a general election within the next couple of years. Presumably you'd like to see all the parties embracing this agenda in their manifestos.
Certainly would. And I think, any party that's going to the country needs to create a vision. And too often what happens in manifestos, there's just a long list of things they're going to do, which are about the pressure points of now. Well, I can appreciate why they do that because that's what the electorate wants to hear. But I would like to see that in a framework that's about a vision for a 22nd and 23rd century society. And the short-term policy agenda will be about how do we work towards getting to this great objective of a very dynamic, creative society that embraces people of all ages.
Martin Green, thank you very much.
Thank you.